I see a lot of videos out there about loneliness and INFJs, and I think it's something that an INFJ struggles with. But honestly, I think it's something a lot of people struggle with. Loneliness. If you were to ask each type why they're lonely, you would find similar answers. And that's why I think a lot of people who make videos about loneliness, they're all very general, and they could actually apply to many different types of people because they touch on what all of us as human beings value. In other words, we all crave connection. Yes, we all desire to have connection with others. We weren't meant to exist alone. We were meant to live together, to be together, to live life with others. That's how we're all wired. So yes, I think all of us crave connection. Everyone, no matter who you are, feels misunderstood from time to time. But being misunderstood is not exclusive to certain personality types. I believe we all have our challenges in this, but being misunderstood is a symptom of a lack of connection for everyone, not just for certain types. There are a lot of things that I see people say about why we are lonely, and like I said, most of the things I see could apply to basically anybody. But I think it takes some understanding of your particular type, who you are, in order to speak to these things on a more intimate level. And especially for those of us who have been around a longer time, I think we've had more time to reflect on these things, and we've had a lot of experiences which have helped to foster that understanding over time. So I want to talk about loneliness for the INFJ, and I want to be a bit more specific as it relates to the INFJ type. I see a lot of people talking out there, but I don't necessarily see those who really get to the root of the problem. So I'm going to start by reading something that I had written in an email to someone. I enjoy sharing my raw thoughts as I am right now, but I find that when I write, I can really express my thoughts in a way I cannot do by just saying them out loud like this. So this is what I said to someone. We were talking about being lonely, and I said, I know exactly what you mean, because the question was asked, are we always supposed to feel alone? Are we supposed to feel alone in relationships and in crowds? So I answered, I know exactly what you mean. All my life I felt this way. The more the people, the more wistful I felt, especially in a crowd. It's like watching everyone live their lives from up above, like my soul has left my body, and I'm feeling little bits of all the people, catching snippets of conversation. But I don't belong, and I knew it acutely. What they had is not what I had, and I felt it's what I never would have. But something has changed for me. When I sit in a crowd now, when I sit with people I love, the feeling I have is different. I feel, dare I say, set apart, in kind of a sanctified sort of way. I am set apart, and the feeling is different because before I felt set apart in the sense of not belonging, not being understood. But now I feel set apart because I understand why it must be that way, and I embrace it, and I understand it. It's that finally knowing who you are. I've been consecrated to a purpose through understanding of self. Because of that, I have internal peace. I've had several people come into my life who have shown the light on who I am. I could say that because I've been open with them in a way I never have before, that's why I no longer feel lonely. But that's not true. The reason I'm no longer lonely is because I finally know who I am. I have met me. I am no longer bewildered, scanning the crowds for glimpses of myself. That's what I was doing, you know. I was looking for me in the crowds. I was looking for me in others. Where was I? I could never find myself, and so I felt lonely. I found people who showed me who I was. And even though I will love them forever for it, I am no longer lonely just because they are in my life, although they are extremely important to me. No. I am no longer lonely because I have met me. I have established a relationship with her, and because I finally know her, I am no longer lonely in her company. That's what it is. Before, I was lonely. I was lonely with me. I couldn't be by myself for any length of time because I didn't know this person I was with. It's like being with a stranger, right? You're with a stranger and you're lonely. You don't know that person. That person isn't capable of caring for you and understanding you. That was the case with me. I was stuck with a stranger. So I did a lot of things in my younger years to avoid being with her. I think I was running away from her in some ways, maybe not consciously, but I was doing it. I didn't always enjoy being alone. I hear people talk about how they love being alone, and I used to think, how is that possible? And that's just because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know that person. In some cases, I thought I knew her, and I didn't even like her. In younger years, I think sometimes I like the idea of being lonely. I love the sadness of it. It was kind of romantic in a tragic sort of way. I talked about this before, but I wanted to feel the feelings. I wanted to feel the sadness of the loneliness and the tragedy of it. And, that was the story a lot of my younger years. It's that I wanted to experience these things because I just wanted to feel the emotions of it. And, that was all well and good for a while, but, as it continued, these feelings of loneliness, after a while, you can only feel the emotions of it for so long before you really desire to do something about it. And I think that's where maturity comes in. When you realize, I don't want to be in this state. I don't want to be lonely for the rest of my life. And that's when you start asking the questions. That's when you become self-aware and discover that you want to know more about yourself. But I had people come into my life, and I've done work on myself. It's kind of been a combination of both, but I have to say, I don't know that I could have done it fully without others. I worked on it for many years, but it took a long time, and I think when you finally meet somebody that you can be real with and that you can really show who you are to, someone who deeply desires to understand you, that's when I think things start happening quickly. It kind of all converges together in this perfect storm of events. It happens rapidly. It's just like the pieces start falling in place, one right after the other. That's what happened to me. I was on this quest where I finally decided to be honest with myself. Who was I? I wanted to meet her. I wanted to find out who she was, but I needed help. I was on the path to doing it, but I needed another perspective because I'm biased. We're all biased. I was biased. I could not ever look honestly at myself. I was not capable of doing that. And I'm still not to some extent. Yes, I can see where I'm being a hypocrite in some ways, but there's nothing like having another perspective for growth, And that's what I got. And it was incredible for me because having people in my life that helped me learn who I am, I said this before, but it's like they took a mirror and they held it up in front of me and said, here, meet yourself. Here she is. Look at her. And they reflected me back to me. And that was the day and hour when the loneliness started to subside. And like I said, yes, you can say it was because I met people, but I had been meeting people my whole life, but never found the ones that really could do that. And I think that's key. You have to find people who are willing to listen to you in a way that others aren't, They're willing to really hear what you're saying, and more importantly, hear what you're not saying. That's really what's important. And I think once you get that in your life, and you're able to really know who you really are, that's when the loneliness stops. I don't feel lonely anymore. I am very content. I love being alone now. I am happy in my alone time. And I guess happy isn't even the best word. I like the word content. I have joy when I'm alone. It's incredible how things have changed for me. I desire that for others, and I especially desire that for people who share my type, because I think we have a problem of not knowing ourselves. We are not very self-aware because we spend so much of our lives focusing on others. And that's for a reason, so don't be too hard on yourself. We have to study others, as I've said here so many times. But again, it's how you learn who you are. It's one of the steps. And of course, it allows us to have so much insight into human nature by studying other people. But the thing is, when you continually direct your focus outwards, you never turn it inwards. That's something you have to learn to do. I used to ask other people's questions. I used to interview people incessantly. But when it came to myself, I never did that. So that's why I always felt lonely, because I never discovered myself. I never interviewed myself. I was never honest with myself, and I needed things to come together in such a way. And again, it's maturity. Like finally one day realizing, I don't know myself. Maybe this is the problem. And then the search begins to discover who you are. This, plus finding people who love you and really want to help you to do that in life. That's the biggest value my loved ones have in my life, is that they help me see who I am. And I'm no longer lonely. I know who I am. Now I sit in crowds and I'm content. I love sitting in crowds. Before that, it was kind of a sense of grief for me. Just to watch everyone out there living their lives and smiling and happy and whatever was going on. And I always thought, ugh, why am I so lonely amidst all these people? And now I sit in crowds and I love watching them now. And I have this inner dialogue with myself. While I'm sitting in the crowds, I actually have an internal conversation with myself. And I feel content. I know who I am. I know my purpose. I know my reason for being. I cried the day I realized this. The day I realized I no longer felt alone. It was life-changing for me. I used to cry all the time. I cried for years about how lonely I was. But no more. So I hope you can find your way out of loneliness. I think it's possible. I know it's possible. And I wish you the best in discovering yourself and curing your loneliness.